In February 2026, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stood inside Boeing's St. Louis plant and christened the region Fighterland, USA. Politicians celebrated. Headlines declared Boeing had returned to Illinois. But only about 600 defense headquarters jobs actually moved back. Corporate leadership never left Virginia. And while cameras rolled, Super Hornet work was quietly being shipped out of St. Louis. So, what exactly came back? And who does this victory really serve? February 18th, 2026. Cameras flash inside Boeing's St. Louis plant as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth steps up to the microphone. The banners read, Fighterland, USA. Local officials beam. St. Louis County Executive Sam Page calls it a new era for American aerospace. Illinois State Senator Rochelle Aude Crowe hails Boeing's homecoming. The headlines are ready before the ink is dry. Boeing returns to Illinois. Defense jobs flood back to the heartland. Hegseth's speech delivers exactly what the audience came for. Relocating our defense headquarters here strengthens America's warfighting edge and puts leadership back where it belongs, next to the engineers building our fighters. Applause breaks out. Economic development chiefs and business groups line up to claim credit. The phrase Fighterland USA ricochets through press releases and social media feeds, a slogan designed for easy headlines and campaign ads. But beneath the confetti, the numbers tell a quieter story. The official press release repeats a round figure, about 600 defense headquarters jobs moving from Arlington, Virginia to the St. Louis-Mascouda corridor. No breakdown, no list of titles, or whether these are new hires or relocated managers. The region already hosts around 18,000 Boeing employees, most of them on the factory floor. The return is a headquarters shuffle, not a mass hiring wave. Corporate leadership, the real decision makers, remain anchored in Virginia, with the global headquarters address unchanged in SEC filings. As the ceremony wraps, local politicians tout the move as a turning point. Yet just outside the spotlight, Super Hornet work is quietly being shipped out, and the same week's headlines barely mention the ongoing fallout from Boeing's labor and safety crises. The spectacle is unmistakable. The substance, less so. The 2022 exodus, everyone forgot. May 2022. Boeing's corporate headquarters departed Chicago for Arlington, Virginia, ending 2 decades of high-profile Illinois presence with a short press release and little fanfare. Within weeks, Caterpillar announced it was leaving Deerfield for Irving, Texas, and Citadel, the state's most prominent hedge fund, shifted its base from Chicago to Miami. 3 corporate giants, gone from Illinois in less than 2 months. The headlines were blunt: another exodus, another blow to the state's business reputation. The reasons were not a mystery. Illinois sat near the bottom of national business climate rankings, 3rd least friendly on CNBC's 2022 list. The state's combined tax burden led the nation, and its pension debt had ballooned to over $300 billion with no fix in sight. Former Caterpillar CEO Doug Oberhelman warned back in 2012 that Illinois' fiscal mess would drive companies out. A decade later, his prediction read like prophecy. The numbers spoke for themselves. Deerfield's cost of living was about 26% higher than Irving's, making Texas a cheaper, more attractive option for both companies and workers. Illinois' workers' compensation rates and regulatory hurdles only added to the pressure. Even after the 2022 departures, no major tax reforms passed in Springfield. The much-touted Illinois Innovation Fund, launched in 2023, offered up to $25 million in grants for advanced manufacturing, but Boeing is not listed as a recipient. What moved in 2022 was more than just a mailing address. Boeing's global headquarters, Caterpillar's leadership, and Citadel's financial operations all left the state, taking thousands of high-paying jobs and millions in payroll with them. The loss of these headquarters did not just sting. It exposed the persistent gap between political optimism and economic reality in Illinois. The 2026 return headlines ring hollow when set against this backdrop of ongoing corporate flight. What actually came back? The headline number, about 600 defense headquarters jobs, became the centerpiece of Boeing's return story. Officials and press releases repeated it as proof of a regional comeback, but the reality is far less dramatic. These are not new manufacturing jobs, or a wave of engineers flooding into Illinois and Missouri. They are mostly management and support roles shifting from Arlington, Virginia, back to the St. Louis and Mascoutah corridor. Out of a regional Boeing workforce that already hovers around 18,000, this transfer amounts to a reshuffling of less than 4%. The rest of the company's power structure, corporate leadership, commercial aviation executives, and the global headquarters remains firmly planted in Virginia, as confirmed by Securities and Exchange Commission filings and Arlington property records. No public document breaks down exactly who is moving, or whether these are new hires or transfers. Even the 600 job figure is repeated without verification in official filings and state incentive agreements. For all the talk of Fighterland USA, the move is a headquarters adjustment, not a wholesale restoration. The Midwest regains a sliver of executive presence, but the real levers of decision-making and the bulk of high-value jobs stay anchored elsewhere. While officials celebrated Boeing's return to the region, the reality on the factory floor told a different story. In September 2024, Boeing announced that the FA-18 Super Hornet service life modification program, work that had anchored skilled jobs in Mascoutah and the St. Louis corridor for decades, would be moved to San Antonio by 2027. The company's internal memo cited streamlined tooling and economies of scale, but for the region, it meant the loss of up to 200 high-skill positions. The decision landed just months after Boeing secured a $198 million Navy contract for depot-level Super Hornet upgrades, a deal many assumed would keep the work local. Instead, the contract will now be fulfilled in Texas. For the International Association of Machinists District 837, the news was a gut punch. Union leaders called the move deeply disappointing, pointing out that the headlines about new defense headquarters jobs were arriving at the same time as real work and real paychecks were being stripped from the community. The union's statement questioned whether the supposed return was anything more than a reshuffling of office staff, while the region's manufacturing core continued to erode. For workers, the fanfare of Fighterland USA rang hollow against the backdrop of another program quietly leaving town. In August 2024, nearly 12,000 machinists in St. Louis staged a 15-week strike, the longest in Boeing's history. Union records show workers lost $300 million in wages, while Boeing's F-15 sustainment line slowed, and the final settlement offered only a 2.5% wage increase over 3 years, a freeze on healthcare contributions, and a new overtime committee. The sense of victory was muted after months on the picket lines. At the same time, Boeing's financials unraveled. SEC filings revealed an $11.83 billion net loss for fiscal year 2024, fueled by legal reserves, supply chain overruns, and the lingering impact of the 737 MAX crisis. Fourth quarter revenue dropped 31%, commercial airplane sales fell 38%, and negative cash flow forced Boeing to tap its revolving credit. In January, the FAA capped 737 MAX production at 38 jets per month, cutting revenue by over $1 billion. By July, Boeing agreed to a $1.1 billion settlement after pleading no contest to felony fraud. The cost of the crisis ran far deeper than headlines suggested. The real driver behind Boeing's so-called return wasn't nostalgia or civic pride. It was a Pentagon contract with a price tag too big to ignore. In March 2025, the Department of Defense awarded Boeing a $20 billion deal to co-develop the F-47, the next generation fighter jet. That contract spelled out where the work would happen: St. Charles, Missouri, leveraging the region's existing aerospace infrastructure. Missouri officials responded with a $25 million incentive package, including $15 million in tax credits and $10 million in direct grants for facility upgrades and workforce training. The agreement includes clawback clauses if Boeing moves jobs out. This wasn't a homecoming. It was a transaction designed to capture federal dollars and state subsidies in a single move. Boeing's new map of power looks nothing like the old one. The company's global headquarters, where the biggest decisions are made, remains in Arlington, Virginia, just blocks from the Pentagon. Commercial aviation leadership and top corporate officers never left Virginia after the 2022 move. The St. Louis-Mascouta corridor, now branded as the Defense headquarters, hosts about 600 management and support jobs, a fraction of the company's total workforce. Meanwhile, commercial operations are scattered across Seattle, Charleston, and beyond. This split structure means local officials in Missouri and Illinois can claim a win, but the levers of corporate authority and strategy are still anchored on the East Coast. What's returned is a sliver of influence, enough for a headline, but not enough to steer the company's future. Boeing's split headquarters model is no outlier. Across the Fortune 500, companies routinely divide their executive, operations, and manufacturing hubs to capture tax breaks and incentives in multiple states. Apple keeps corporate leadership in California, while channeling operations through Texas. Amazon's HQ2 in Virginia is just one node in a patchwork of logistics centers nationwide. Researchers at Brookings found that every 100 headquarters jobs create only 20 to 30 local spillover positions, far less than the job creation claims politicians tout. This is the corporate shell game: headline victories for local officials, modest economic impact for communities, and real power and profits flowing to wherever the tax math works best. Demanding full transparency on these deals is the only way to hold both corporations and policymakers accountable. Today, corporate giants can stage a return with 600 jobs while keeping real power and thousands of careers elsewhere. As states compete in this shell game, headlines mask a deeper erosion of local leverage. The real question is this: who wins when the scoreboard hides what is actually left behind? Share your thoughts below.